Hasana, what is it? You are such a pest. I just want to know if the tea smells weird. What do you mean, weird? It's just regular tea. Come, Hasana. Why are you even asking me all these questions? Hasana had to think of an excuse on the spot. Sir Rami asked me to make tea for him, and I'm not sure how to make it. So I thought to come to you, the expert. He looked at her suspiciously before telling her to grab a cup from the kitchen and meet him at the pantry, where he showed her the last of the herbal mix left. He showed her in what proportions to mix and how to stir. When Hasana put the mixture to her nose, the smell was different from what she had perceived from the broken cup a while back, which meant that something else had been added to the tea later on. She had to go back to the shop in the market as soon as possible. The Al Karim enterprise marked its 40th anniversary with a grand party to celebrate this significant milestone. The mansion buzzed with excitement, and the servants were all dressed in vibrant Ankara outfits of different styles, reflecting their unique personalities. The air was thick with the aroma of delicious food, mingling with the sounds of laughter and music. Hasana, in her Ankara dress, was a vision of elegance. The dress clung to her figure in all the right places, the vibrant colors accentuating her dark, smooth skin. Her hair was adorned with delicate beads that shimmered as she moved, and her eyes sparkled like stars in the night sky. She moved with a grace that seemed almost otherworldly, her presence commanding attention without trying. She was breathtaking, a goddess among mortals. Rami stumbled into the venue, his steps unsteady from too much drink. He was ready to cause a scene, but when he spotted Hasana from afar, he froze. He couldn't believe his eyes. She was ethereal, a vision that sobered him more effectively than any cold shower. His heart began to beat faster, drumming loudly in his chest. When Hasana caught sight of him, she smiled a radiant smile that made his pulse race even more. Unable to take his eyes off her, Rami sat down, entranced. He watched her every move, his gaze unwavering. A young boy named Ishaka approached him with a drink and a note that read, "You look a mess. Drink this and thank me later." Rami, too mesmerized to question it, downed the drink. Almost instantly, the fog in his mind began to clear. Throughout the feast, Rami and Hasana exchanged glances, smiling at each other. Their silent communication spoke volumes. At one point, Rami sent her a note that said, "Save me, I don't want to be here." Hasana laughed heartily, signaling for him to follow her. Not long after, Rami slipped out. Looking around for Hasana, she whistled softly from behind him, and he turned to see her, a playful smile on her face. They both ran away from the festivities, laughing wholeheartedly. "Where are we going?" Rami asked, breathless from running. Hasana simply laughed and led him further away. Soon, they arrived at the tranquil waterfall, the soft sound of rushing water filling the air. "This is my safe space on my days off," she said, her eyes sparkling. Rami exclaimed, "You spend your days off all by yourself? Why?" Hasana laughed heartily. "I enjoy the peace here, away from all the noise at the mansion." Rami looked at her for a moment before saying, "Next time you have a day off, let me know. I'd like to spend it with you." Hasana blushed and smiled. "I'd love that." Rami gazed at her, a gentle smile tugging at his lips. "You smell wonderful," he murmured, his voice warm and sincere. "Thanks for the gift. I love fragrances with a hint of coffee." She blushed. "Thanks for the drink, Miss Anonymous. Rami teased. "I do feel better." "You're welcome," Hassana replied with a soft laugh. They settled by the water, engrossed in deep conversations and laughter, as the tension between them grew. Their pinky fingers lightly brushed, sending electric shivers up their arms. Gradually, their noses touched, their breaths blending together. Just as their lips were on the verge of meeting, Rami's phone rang, shattering the moment. "It's Tariq," he said, frustration evident in his voice. Reluctantly, they headed back to the mansion in silence, stealing glances and smiling despite the interruption. That night, as Hassana took the bowl of fruits to Rami's room, her heart skipped a beat upon seeing him in his robe. He looked up, his eyes lighting up as he saw her. "Hi," he said, his voice a soft caress. "Hey," she replied, a shy smile playing on her lips. "You do realize that you look beautiful in anything you wear, right?" Rami's voice was filled with admiration, and Hassana couldn't help but blush. She smiled and thanked him, her heart pounding in her chest. The air between them seemed to thicken, their breathing quickening in pace. Rami took a step closer, his gaze never leaving hers. "I've been meaning to do this all day," he whispered, his voice husky with desire. In an instant, he closed the distance between them, his hands gently yet firmly grasping her waist. Their bodies pressed together, he tilted his head and captured her lips in a kiss. It was a kiss that spoke of longing, of unspoken emotions, and of a connection that had been building between them. The kiss was like poetry, each movement of their lips a stanza, each touch a verse. His lips were soft yet insistent, moving against hers with a rhythm that made her head spin. The taste of him was intoxicating, a blend of sweetness and desire that she couldn't get enough of. His hands roamed up her back, pulling her closer as if he could mold them into one. Hassana responded in kind, her hands finding their way to his chest, feeling the rapid beat of his heart beneath her fingers. She lost herself in the moment, the world around them fading into oblivion. Their breaths mingled the warmth of his skin against hers, sending shivers down her spine. But after a few minutes, reality crashed down on her. She pulled away, her breath coming in ragged gasps. "We shouldn't be doing this," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I'm just to help." Rami's eyes were intense, filled with an emotion she couldn't quite place. "I don't care," he said fervently. "No one has ever made me feel this way before. Being a help is only a label, not who you are as a person. You are Hassana." His words resonated within her, and before she could respond, he kissed her again. This time, the kiss was deeper and more desperate, as if he were trying to convey everything he felt in that one act. She melted into him, savoring the sensation, the connection that felt so right despite the circumstances. After what felt like an eternity, she pulled away again, her mind swirling with confusion and desire. She looked into his eyes, searching for answers, but finding only the same intensity that mirrored her feelings. She took a step back, her hands shaking. I have to go," she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. Without waiting for a response, she turned and ran out of the room, her heart racing and her mind a whirlwind of emotions. The taste of his lips lingered on hers, a bittersweet reminder of what had just happened. As she reached her quarters, she leaned against the door, trying to catch her breath. She couldn't deny the pull she felt towards Rami, but she also couldn't ignore the boundaries that society had placed between them. Yet, at that moment, she realized that those boundaries were beginning to blur, and she wasn't sure what that meant for her future. The first light of dawn seeped through the thin curtains of Hasana's small room, casting soft shadows on the walls. She lay still, staring at the ceiling, replaying the events of the previous night in her mind. Rami's kiss had stirred in her something deep inside her heart, something she had never felt before. She could still feel the warmth of his lips, the intensity of his touch, and the electric connection that left her breathless. But the reality of her situation hit her hard, forcing her to push those feelings aside. Hasana knew she couldn't afford to let herself get hurt. She was just a servant, a girl who had offered herself as collateral to work off her family's debt for the next 20 years. Falling for Rami, the rebellious son of the house, could only lead to heartbreak. Her heart yearned for him, but her mind warned her to stay away. For the next few days, Hasana made a conscious effort to avoid Rami. She immersed herself in her duties, finding solace in the routine of her work. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't shake the longing that gnawed at her heart. Each evening, when it was time to take Rami his bowl of fruits, she found an excuse to send Aishatu in her place. Rami's patience wore thin quickly. On the second night, when Aishatu appeared with the bowl of fruits instead of Hasana, he snapped. With a surge of anger, he flung the bowl across the room, the fruits scattering in all directions. "Where is she?" he demanded, his voice echoing through the halls. Aishatu flinched, unsure of how to respond. "I don't know, sir. She's been busy with other tasks." Frustrated and unable to sleep, Rami stormed to the servants' quarters. As he reached the quarters, he called out, "Where is she?" The gardener, startled by Rami's sudden appearance, stammered, "Who, sir?" "Queen Amina, you dummy. Get me Hasana," Rami retorted, his impatience growing. In seconds, Hasana stood before him in her shimmering red sleepwear. Rami was momentarily taken aback by her appearance, the way her curves were accentuated by the soft fabric, the way her hair caressed her face and shoulders. He wanted to hold her, to feel her warmth, to kiss those lips that called out to him. "You asked to see me. Is something wrong?" Hasana's voice was soft, filled with genuine concern. "I missed you," Rami said, stepping closer. "Why are you doing this to me, Hasana? Why are you avoiding me?" Hasana looked away, her heart aching. "I'm just a maid, Rami. I don't want to complicate the next 20 years of my life by getting involved with you. I've heard stories about the servant girls you've played with. I don't want to be another instrument to cure your boredom." Rami's eyes softened, filled with a mix of frustration and longing. "I don't care about those stories. I don't care about the stupid fruits. I care about you, Hasana. You're not just a maid to me. No one has ever made me feel this way before." Hasana felt her resolve weaken as Rami moved closer, his breath warm on her skin. She took a step back, shaking her head. "I'll bring your fruits to you just like you like it, and that will be all. I can't let myself fall for you, Rami. It's too risky." "Hasana, please," Rami pleaded, his voice raw with emotion. But Hasana turned away, her heart breaking as she walked back to her quarters. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she fought to keep them from falling. She had hurt him, and in doing so she had hurt herself. She had turned down the man she had fallen in love with, all in the name of self-preservation. That night, as she lay in her bed, the weight of her decision pressed heavily on her chest. She knew she had made the right choice, but it didn't make the pain any less real. She closed her eyes, hoping that sleep would bring her some respite from the turmoil in her heart. The sun was just beginning to rise as the servants of the Al-Karim mansion prepared for another market day. Hassana was already up, her mind racing with the possibilities and dangers of what she was about to undertake. She knew she had to find out more about the herbal mix and the poison she suspected was being used to harm Mr. Al-Karim. The night before, she had bribed the servant girl who usually accompanied the house manager to the market, promising to do her dinner duties for a week. As they arrived at the bustling market, Hassana was on high alert, her heart pounding with anticipation and fear. Kaka, I think it will be faster if we shop individually and meet in the cold room in 30 minutes, Hassana suggested to the house manager. Before the manager could respond, Hassana was already weaving through the crowded market streets, making her way to the herbal store she had visited before. She clutched the mix Ismail had given her, hoping it would provide the answers she needed. The shopkeeper recognized her immediately. "Back again, miss. What can I do for you today?" Hassana handed him the mix. "Could you tell me if this is poisonous?" The shopkeeper examined the mixture closely. "No, this isn't poisonous. But to make it deadly, you'd need to add this." He showed her the last herbal mix he had displayed during her previous visit. Hassana's heart sank. This meant that the servant had prepared Mr. Al-Karim's tea without the poison, but it was altered in Tariq's hands. Tariq was the one poisoning his father, and Rami might not be aware of it. This revelation only strengthened her resolve to stay away from Rami if she was to uncover the full truth and protect herself from the chaos that might ensue. She purchased a small quantity of the mix, her mind already planning the next steps. As she left the shop, a hawker passed by, shouting, "Medicine for scorpion bites, antidote for poison." It hit her that there could be an antidote to the poison. She asked the shopkeeper about it, and he confirmed that while there was an antidote, it was rare. He could give her something with slow potency, but the fastest neutralizer was in the possession of a tribe called Masu Birom on the outskirts of town. That evening, before Ismail mixed Mr. Al-Karim's tea, Hassana discreetly added the antidote she had bought to the herbal mix. It wasn't a permanent solution, but it provided her with some temporary relief. She knew she needed the potent antidote as soon as possible, but leaving without being noticed would be difficult. She decided to sneak into Tariq's room.